That might have been 6-7 minutes. Also tomorrow morning, Shachar is 8 o'clock, and on the menu is bagel lox and cream cheese. Everyone is invited. Also want to welcome the liaison between the summer tourist community and this past Saturday evening, Motzei Shabbos, after Yom Kippur, after Rosh Hashanah ended and Shabbos ended, one of those that traveled from the city to be here on Rosh Hashanah services with us, upon leaving our area, he's a doctor in the emergency room in NYU. And when he left Saturday evening to go back to New York, he was driving through Monticello, and what he did for the sake of heaven, the Kiddush Hashem, and for Jewish-Gentile relations, we're proud that whoever had a share in making certain that our synagogue should be here, and he should come here to our synagogue. He stopped, he thought a crowd was gathered at the Dollar Tree store, and he discovered that a Schwarzer, a black man, a Negro with a gang-related crime, violence or shooting, was shot in the leg. He was bleeding to death. It would take him 10 minutes and wouldn't be anybody left there. The police they did whatever they could, waiting for the ambulance to arrive. And meantime, blood was gushing. With Band-Aids or whatever they had, they were trying to stop the bleeding, and they were administering oxygen. So he immediately took the tube, the pipe, from the oxygen tank to the patient, and he immediately made a tourniquet around the thigh that stopped the bleeding, and he saved his life. Right before the most solemn day of the year, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, it's a moment of truth. The Rabbi of Kosk said that our neighbor, our friend, we're forbidden to fool, and the Almighty you cannot fool, and whoever fools himself is indeed a fool. There was the legendary figure, Torah leader, Rabbi Abramsky, in Europe. The story goes back some 95 years ago. The greatest leader of our day was Rabbi Chaim Moshe Kaczynski, Rabbi in Vilna. So he spoke with him, and he said, "You must leave immediately for London." He said, because the conditions there with kosher slaughtering is appalling. He says, you must become part of a bed in there and see what you can do to rectify the situation, to remedy it. He, of course, he had very little desire, if any way that he could not have to go, he wouldn't go to join a Bezdin like that, of those that are not qualified to be part of the Bezdin, those that make up their own laws and their own customs and do whatever they want and how they want, make up their own religion. So, but if the greatest authority of our day, he said that you must go, there was no two ways about it, he left. When he arrived, whatever he described to him beforehand, the preview didn't compare to the actual scene itself. He found men who are supposed to be very learned and God-fearing, committed and observing Judaism. They were out in the street, those that slaughter animals, slaughter for kosher animals to be kosher. They were out in the street on Saturday publicly desecrating the Sabbath, smoking cigarettes on the Sabbath, on Shabbos. So one of his first acts were that he fired all of these so-called Rabbi Slaughter Shochtim. They were entrenched in London for years, and they had all sorts of political connections, and so it didn't take much for them to get him hailed into court. And also, they used their influence to make certain that he should be denied any real proper legal representation. He had no alternative, he had to represent himself. In representing himself, the judge was very impressed with his integrity, his intelligence, and that he, not only was he a learned rabbi, but he seemed to be worldly as well. He represented himself very ably. So the judge turned to him and says to him, Rabbi, he said, who do you consider in London the highest authority on laws of kosher slaughtering animals? So he, with his head bowed, he said, Your Honor, he says, I, Yecheskel Abramsky. The judge was shocked. He said, my goodness, Rabbi, isn't that out of character? That's arrogance. Isn't that out of character of a rabbi? A rabbi should show humility. You are the... I said, how can you make a statement like that? He says, I'll tell you, Your Honor, you forget that when I walked into your courtroom, I was sworn in, I'm under oath, and under oath I must tell the truth. So it's a time where we have to tell the truth, and Judaism has both in it. You have to live like a human being, and you have to be God-fearing as well. The code of Jewish law on daily Jewish practices, Sabbath and festivals, Orach Chaim, begins Shivisi Hashem L'Negisami. That you always have to have the Almighty in front of you. You have to be God-fearing. The presence of the Almighty should always be constantly in front of you. That's how it commences. It ends, begins there with laws of daily prayers, and then it ends with the laws dealing with the festival of Purim. Purim, one of the most joyous holidays of the year, and it ends with Leiv Toiv Mishta Tomid, that a good heart enjoys festivities, a festive meal. Judaism has to have both. Shivish Hashem and Megdisomit. That we have to realize there's Almighty in front of us, but that we still have to live like a human being. Rabbi Sol Salanter said that you shouldn't get caught up, the way you want to conduct your life with spirituality and sanctity, that's for you. But your brother, his physical needs are your spiritual needs. Whatever he needs physically, what he's missing in his life, what he's missing, that's something, that's part of Shivish Hashem, of being there's an Almighty in front of you. There's a magnificent tie between Jews from all walks of life, where they study daily one of Daf Yomi. They understand the entire Talmud. Every day they're on the same, so to speak, the same page. And these days, the Talmud tells a very interesting story. It was a period during the Second Temple, and at that time it was under Roman rule. And one of the highest positions in Jewish life as a Kohen Gadol was a high priest. So the Romans, the ruling Roman government realized that in order to have the masses subordinate to them, they needed the cooperation of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. So they would not appoint someone who was learned, God-fearing, who was qualified for the job, but someone who would be subservient to them And on many occasions they would pay for the job. They would be highly unqualified. They might not even been a Kohen altogether. And as a result, the Talmud tells us that because they misled, they led the masses down to the road of destruction, their lives were shortened. One particular such, from that group, that conduct, there was an argument between a king and a queen, the Talmud relates. So he insisted that lamb's meat is the taste, the king insisted that lamb's meat is the tastiest meat that there is. The queen insisted that goat's meat is the tastiest. And an argument ensued between them, and they said, you know what? Let's go to the high priest. He's always involved with slaughtering animals, and from his own experience, he'll be able to tell us which is the tastiest of the meat. It was one of these, like I mentioned, an ignoramus in Jewish law, had a disregard for, they had no fear of the Almighty. So when he came, they asked him, they said, which is, I insist, the king said, I insist that lamb's meat is the tastiest. He said, my wife, the queen, says that goat's meat is the tastiest. So with his right hand, he ridiculed. He said, what do you mean, the goat's meat? Of course, lamb's meat is tastiest. Much tastier. So they were upset and that he ridiculed one who wasn't of the same opinion. Then so he ordered that his right hand be cut off. Now, when he would be involved in sacrifices, he would always wear a glove because he didn't want to dirty his hands with the blood from the sacrifices. And it was not really according to Jewish law. There shouldn't be anything separating your hand from the animal itself. So then, when he was given over to executioners to cut off his hand, his right hand, so he bribed them. He said, I have to do the service with my right hand. So he says, cut off my left hand. So they cut off his left hand. The king saw they didn't follow his orders, and they bribed him, so he ordered that the right hand be cut off also. Both the right and the left hand, both were cut off. Talmud relates, they said that in a way this was to his benefit, because of the way he conducted himself. He led so many down to the road of destruction and turned away from Judaism, so he received his punishment here instead of receiving a much worse punishment when he meets his Creator. That's the Talmud. Someone came to one of the greatest halakhic authorities in the world, Rabbi Silverstein, came to ask him a question, someone who does circumcision, a moil. So he asked him, knowing this was narrated in the Talmud, this incident, he said, am I permitted, when I do a circumcision, am I permitted to have gloves on my hands, sterile gloves on my hands, because we don't want to transmit any kind of communicable disease from myself to the infant? So he told him, he says, there's a big difference. He says, there, he was separating himself only because of selfish reasons. He was separating himself from the animal because he didn't want to dirty his hand with the blood. Here, he says he has the interest of the infant at heart. He's concerned that he might have some sort of bacteria, some sort of a germ that he might transmit to the infant. He should absolutely, not only is it permitted, but he should definitely wear, that's what our Torah is all about. So when we stand before the Almighty on Yom Kippur, we ask for forgiveness, this should all be on our mind. Chalani ben Akash Omer, Bratz HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zakei Yisrael, the Tikal Chibra